Hi everyone, it's time for part 2, making a component from our links. Requirements for part 2 are to take 4 links. They need to be unique student links from your fellow classmates, drag them into an assembly file, ground one of the links, and then start to use the join command to link all 4 into a working assembly. So we're going to start with a new design, a brand new file. Let's go over to Fusion 360. So here in Fusion 360, I've started a new design, file, new design. And it's important to save this, so I click the save button. You must save first, or nothing else works if you don't have a saved file. So IND class, class02 links, and the file name is your name, and then assembly. Hit save on that. That's going to save out to the cloud. You watch the spinny wheel go until it's saved. Once it's done saving, it's just simply a blank file. Now I want to drag in my classmates' work into an assembly. Now it's important to look for your classmates' work with the ones that say link. Link. Do not drag in their assembly file or you'll create a bigger mess. So you want to go ahead and find the ones that say link. Find 4 that you like and drag them in. I only have a few here since this is just starting this folder. I'm going to drag a couple in here. I simply click and drag and drop. You'll notice it follows my cursor. I let go and it drops it into my assembly file. So I'm starting with this green piece, drop it in, there it is. As it's dropped in, notice a couple things. One, it comes with a move, so I can move this where I'd like to if I want to move it. And then say OK. The other thing to notice is it tells me if it's already a component or if it's a body. So let me drag in a different example. This is from a classmate B. Drag this in. And I'm going to move this up and off. And say OK. And again, I see this component symbol. This lets me know that it's been turned into a component. So deep inside of this file, there's a component here. There are also bodies. That's helpful to know later on. I might need to know what I'm controlling inside each of these files. Let's go ahead and make an assembly. So I'm going to go up to Assemble, Joint, or J. Now it's asking me to select 2 components to combine into one assembly. The order of clicking is important. Component 1 is the one that wants to move. Component 2 is the destination, always. So I start with the first one. I can hover over any part of the component. I notice I can have this component center point jump around to each location. But I want to align big circle to big circle. So I click on this outer big circle first. That sets this as my first join, right here in the middle of that big circle. Now I can orbit and look at component 2. I'll click this large circle and I'll click one time to select that. And you'll notice it brings component 1 down to component 2. I can also change the angle of alignment to adjust it in the direction I want that to go. If it comes in for you, it's likely going to be set to rigid, which means they're simply glued together. But the type we want is revolute. It lets them rotate about each other and about the circles that are all common to everybody's link file. So I say OK here. If I want to test this to see if it worked, if I click and drag on this, it moves the whole assembly. That's not what I want. So I want to test this where it actually functions the way it's supposed to. So I might want to click on this. I can right click and say ground. That should lock this in with one caveat. So let's try it. If I grab this, oops, it's not doing it. It's still moving them together. That lets me know I need to simply open this file up and find another component nested within the file that needs to be grounded. I can right click and say ground. And now this should work. Right? Now it is working. I can grab this, I can pull it, and that revolve join is now working properly. So know that you might have to ground at the parent level or ground. You might open this up and ground a component within each file. And with that, let's bring in some of the others. So I'm going to grab another one of these guys, and I can move this anywhere I'd like to. I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to go ahead and create a join again. So assemble, join. The one I want to move, I click first and click this circle. Click one time. Now click the underside, this circle, there. Watch it move into place. And there it is. That's what I want, so I can say OK. Now let's test it. I notice that it is moving and it's keeping that grounded piece, so I'm working OK. I can hit Control Z on my keyboard to undo that. Now last but not least, the link that goes across the top, I'll grab in another green one here. Grab and drop. I'm just going to simply move this one up into the air here and say OK. Now I can assemble. So I'm going to do a joint. The one I want to move is this one up here in the sky. Click on that guy first. I want to bring it down to this location. Click on that guy second. It's going to drop it down, spin it around. Now I can change the angle, might be 90 degrees to link this all together. Now I can say OK. I'll notice this might be able to spin, but it spins separately. I want to make that last connection here. So I'm going to do undo, Control Z, and I'm going to make one more assembly modification. So assemble, joint. Now this starts to get tough. How do I click on that first component? Now I can do a couple of tricks. Number one is I like to turn off some of the other components. I click the light bulb over here, turn it off. Now it's a lot easier to select. I can go to the underbelly, click right here, click once. That's component 1 is selected. Now component 2 I can turn back on because component 1 is now ghosted. Click there. It's a revolute. It's going to spin about that circle, and I can say OK. I'm good. Now I can test it by dragging one of these components, and there I go. Now I've got a functioning assembly. I'll notice that it's not smart in the sense I can drag this right past itself. There are a couple ways to combat that. Number one, there's something called contact sets. It's going to put some physical properties into this, but it's going to use up computer resources pretty strongly. I can also come back and click on one of these joints. If I can grab one here. Here's the joint. I can right click on it, and I can come in and edit the joint limits. It's going to give me a little limit I can drag, so I put the minimum and maximum, and I can say it can only drag so far. So maybe I know it can go 35 degrees this way and 35 degrees that way. If I say OK, now I can test it. It hits a lock there. You can see it can't go past the 35 degrees, and that joint is now limited. And that's it for joints. I want to give it one last save on my name and assembly. Hit save, and I'm good with part 2.